All right, let's do another top 10 list here. This is top 10 deep cut COBRA figures for Hasbro to consider for the G.I. Joe classified line. Number 1, the Electric Eel. Electric Eel was part of the Valor vs. Venom line. Valor vs. Venom leans very heavy into the sci-fi end of G.I. Joe, and probably too much for most people. From what I understand, the whole concept is that they are taking characters, infusing them with DNA from different animals. So your characters are part themselves and now part pig or cockroach or ferret or squirrel, and they mix in all these different animals, and now you have these new characters. So it crosses a line. And myself, I'm all for these kind of outlandish figures. I like the crazier end of G.I. Joe more than I like the straightforward military end of it, although I like both. But even for me, the sci-fi element is just too much. However, there are some really great characters in that line, and Electric Eel is definitely one of them. First of all, just look at him. Imagine how incredible a classified figure he would be. Translucent arms, the fun color palette. His hands are really oversized, but you just scale them down to normal human size, and you could really have something special. And I also think it'd be great because he would help fill out the aquatic element for COBRA. In this list, I am kind of also pushing for the environmental end of characters. Your jungle characters, your water guys, your desert guys. I want to see that end of G.I. Joe kind of filled out a little bit more so we can subgroup our teams, and we'll have our jungle crew and we'll have our mountain climbing crew, and we can kind of do it that way. So I think Electric Eel would be fantastic if you could just give it a shot. Number 9, Neurotoxin. He's another from the Valor vs. Venom line. He is going to be the leader of the Sand Scorpions. And the Sand Scorpions look very similar to him, so that could work in your favor. Again, the sci-fi element here is intense, and he was bonded with scorpion DNA. I do believe that less than half the fan base would and should be okay with them tweaking his backstory and kind of reinventing him a little bit. We don't need the scorpion DNA part of it. It's all right. I think we'd probably all be okay if he was just his own character and we ignore the scorpion DNA. And he would go towards the desert environment of characters, which COBRA doesn't have any desert characters at all. In fact, I think in the whole line, all we really have is Dusty. We also have that kind of strange colored snake eyes. So we don't have much. And anything at best, we got 2 Joes. We don't have any Cobras. So, Neurotoxin is the leader. And then, from there, you can also build out the actual Sand Scorpions, which would probably just be a simple repaint, maybe a different head sculpt. And they also come, Neurotoxin and the Sand Scorpions also come with a mechanical scorpion. So, think about that. That'd be neat. You could actually troop build those. Troop building animals in general, is something that can be done. I never really thought about that. I've seen Savage Land do some things with that. He had some snow serpents in their own pickup truck that he custom built, and in the back of the truck was timber, a few timbers, so it was like snow serpents, and they got white wolves that they go out into the Arctic with, and I think that's a great idea. So the Sand Scorpions and Neurotoxin with their army of mechanical scorpions, that'd be badass. And one more thing, look at these claw attachments he has. Those are fantastic. Big claws you slide over the hands, that's awesome. That guy, he's on the desert, he climbs up on a sand dune, he puts on his claws, he rips open a can of ravioli. He's surviving for years and years like that. Those things are can openers. Those things are badass. We want Neurotoxin. Number 8, Swamp Rat. Look at this dirty dog. Look at this nasty devil. We open up the swamp element. Copperhead's in there, and the dreadnoks could be in there too. Copperhead might have an army of these swamp rats kind of tucked away, and he's waiting for his time to strike, and he runs the swamp rat crew. They have night vision. They eat dead animals and sludge and gross shit, and they're known for attacking an enemy even after they've surrendered. Savage. Number 7, Jungle Viper. This is a troop builder from the Pursuit of Cobra line. These guys are jungle snipers who hide in the greenery and just take your ass out. For some reason, I would love to see these guys with a blowgun and poison darts. They look like those kind of guys. They're in the jungle. You don't see anything. Their eyes are buried in. You hear that sound. You hit it in your neck. You're done. Those guys are awesome. Silent but deadly. I like that style. Jungle theme now too. So we got some jungle characters out there. We got some guys that could be considered jungle characters. And that's a Cobra jungle guy too. I don't know if we have any jungle Cobra themed characters. And just look at this dark plumage. He's this proud peacock. He's nasty. And this is another character that you could really just make dark. I've been talking here and there in other videos about creating some characters that just are dark and have a little bit more of a, an edge to them, a little bit more kind of mature, a little bit more just scary guys. And I think these guys would be fantastic for that. Next up, number 6, Razorclaw. On his file card, he's classified as a feral berserker. That sounds awesome. He growls like an animal. He isn't deployed. He's unleashed like a wild animal to go ham. Kind of reminds me of the bats. How you drop the bats down, the androids, and they just shoot to kill whoever's in sight. There's no discrimination there. They're just mindless freaks. And that's what this guy's like too. You throw him out there and he just tears it up, and hopefully you don't have any of your own guys on the ground with them, because he'll get them too. Razorclaw does visually share some similarities with the guys on the list earlier, the Sand Scorpions and Neurotoxin. If you go with a certain version, you could use this opportunity to just completely reinvent someone. They've done a lot of characters where they've kind of made medium-sized changes to them and done good upgrades and kind of brought them into the 2020s, but we haven't really seen anybody that's just been like completely overhauled. And I think Razorclaw is a perfect opportunity to do that. He's a cool character, but he's not really quite there yet. Visually he's okay, but you could run wild with him. I mean, based on what we know about his character and his backstory and his file card and things, that he's this maniac animal-like character. I mean, he doesn't have to look like this. Would anyone really be mad if he doesn't look like this? Do we have hardcore Razorclaw fans out there that want him to look like this? No. So I mean, I say, why don't we give him a long beard and give him filthy dreadlocks, and he's got drool dripping out of his mouth and his eyes are a different color, and just make him this feral dude. He's kind of filthy. I say boost this dude up, go with this berserker element, and just run wild with it. I'm sure it's fun to just, design these characters at Hasbro, design them on the computer, do the sculpting, and put your own twist on it, put your own spin on it, have some fun with it. So this guy, I think we all can agree. That's probably not true. We probably can't all agree, but this is my video, so I think you guys should just go nuts with it, make him look completely different, and just create an awesome-ass character. He's also got these really interesting weapons on his hands and around his wrists or his forearms that you could do something neat with. They're kind of similar to Helix's, but I think they would be better if they were not so sharp and clean, make them more rusty and dull and kind of stained and dirty looking. I think that'd be a pretty awesome character. Number 5, the Medi-viper. This is just a simple medical specialist, but they could be interesting. I mean, do we know any other doctors in the COBRA organization that are complete maniacs? Medi-viper looks pretty interesting. I mean, he's got a pretty good getup. this strange seafoam green color we haven't really seen at all. So that'll go, along with the line of having a shelf or a display where you just got a good variety of looks and shapes and sizes and colors and everything. And that new color there would be interesting. He could be sort of a troop builder. I don't think you're going to have, a lot of collectors building like armies of these guys, but you could have 3 or 4 and you got a little medical setup. Number 4, Iron Klaw. Iron Klaw is the leader of SCAR, which of course stands for Soldiers of Chaos, Anarchy, and Ruin. They're a separate terrorist organization from COBRA. They're not COBRA, and they were in the time of G.I. Joe Extreme. So they are the bad guys from the G.I. Joe Extreme world. As far as I can tell, G.I. Joe Extreme was a pretty terrible line, but Iron Klaw is a very menacing looking figure, and I want more menacing looking figures in my collection. This is a man's toy line, and we want more frightening villains. He runs a small Eastern European nation, and he killed an entire royal family to seize power and take that position. Cold as ice. And while most of these figures on this list so far are more or less unknown, Iron Klaw is a bigger name. I don't think you have a lot of people out there that love Iron Klaw and are attached to him from their childhood, maybe. But I think most people know Iron Klaw, and he would be a good one that would sell. Number 3, Guillotine. Guillotine came in a big 6-pack at one point, but he's also been available on single card, and there's different versions of him out there. He is a member of the Plague. And from what I understand, the Plague is kind of the best and brightest of all the troop builders in COBRA. So you got your alley vipers, your regular vipers, you got your techno vipers, and the leaders of each of those little groups are members of the Plague. So Guillotine is the leader of the Cobra Eels. So this would be another aquatic themed character. And he looks good. He looks good. You can make this character look fantastic. If you give it some upgrades, give it the professional touch that you do at Hasbro, and he would look fantastic. In his outfit, he looks menacing. He looks like a badass, and you could take his helmet off, and he is a regular guy. I have been a big proponent of making kind of strange characters. I love it when you take the helmet off and they look like scrap iron, where they're scarred and their eyes messed up and major blood. And I like these kind of disfigured faces on these characters. It just that works. It makes them scarier. It makes them a bad guy. It drives that point home a little bit more. But I do think there, probably should be some normal ones here and there. It's not as exciting, but COBRA in general, we got Cobra Commander, we got Destro Baroness, Firefly, Storm Shadow, Dr. Mindbender. You got your top tier gang, but after that, it's a lot of just troop builders. There's not a whole lot of named characters. And I know that that's not really true, but I'm kind of just saying that to make the point, that there's other ones out there, and I know. But G.I. Joe team is like almost all characters that have names and are their own person. And I think we need some more people like that in COBRA. So in general, you could fill out this whole Plague too, really, and kind of accomplish the same thing with adding in some more named characters, give us leaders to all these troop builders. It's just another option. Number 2, the Iron Anvil. These are paratroopers from the Iron Grenadiers. I gravitate more towards the sub-teams that look good when they're together. I do like the Night Force sub-team. Those guys look good together. I think Mad Marauders looks good together. Anyways, the Iron Anvil looks like an Iron Grenadier. I think with the Iron Grenadiers, we got the Bat and the Iron Grenadier Trooper, and those two look incredible together. They're perfect. They're black and red and that real shiny gold, and it looks fantastic. And when they come out with Destro and Baroness, they're going to look like that too. They already wear the black and red, plus Destro's head's going to be gold, and so those 4 will look real solid together. But Metalhead doesn't really fit in, I don't think. Darklon doesn't match that color scheme at all. And you know, Darklon's his own character and everything, so that's okay. But I really want to see another guy in the Iron Grenadiers who's going to kind of match it up. So if I want to build out that army in a big way, they will all look nice in uniform. And Destro has style. You know, I trust Destro to keep his guys looking tight, looking solid, looking sharp. Last, number one. I would say that these haven't really been in much of an order, but I would say number one is number one to me. And this is not going to be a super, super deep cut, but I am going to request the Red Shadows. I don't want to go too hard on this topic here because the Red Shadows is a real big team, and they kind of deserve their own video, which I might want to save for later. But for those of you that don't know, the Red Shadows were the UK equivalent of COBRA back in the early G.I. Joe days. G.I. Joe over there was called Action Force, and they fought the Red Shadows, and then Action Force became G.I. Joe, and then the Red Shadows disappeared, and COBRA took over, and they kind of merged, and the whole line became G.I. Joe, like we know it in the United States. They had their own leader, they had their own characters, they had their own storylines. They were just a whole different faction, and I really wish that I would have been aware of that when I was a kid. I don't know if I would have been able to find any of them anywhere, but it's really neat knowing that there was this other whole line out there, you know, in the UK that was similar to COBRA, but not the same thing, but still in that same world. And you know, I find the Red Shadows really interesting. So even maybe back then I could have got my hands on a comic book, and then those comic books had order this and this, you know, send away for it. Maybe you could have found them somehow. Even just knowing about them would have been pretty neat. I'm saying I want to see the Red Shadows in classified, but there are some other options out there. Super 7 has made a Red Shadows soldier, and he comes in the COBRA mech suit. Also, Big Bad Toy Store is selling pre-orders right now for figures that are made by Fresh Monkey Fiction. It is called Order of the Crimson Moon, and they're basically the Red Shadows characters, but their parts are kind of swapped around, and they're named something different but very similar. I'm sure there's some legal reasons behind that, but you can get them, and I have pre-ordered it. But if Classified announces it, then I'll switch over to Classified. And if you did the Red Shadows, then you could follow it up with a good 4 or 5. Maybe more other characters that are in that faction, and that'd be great. All right, so this has been my video here, guys. Hit the like, hit the subscribe, leave some comments, whatever you want to do. I appreciate it all. Take it easy. G.I. Joe. G.I. Joe.